You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz. And on The Wedding Biz, I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those who I feel are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry. And this is all to provide education and inspiration for any entrepreneur, particularly event industry professionals and consumers. So if you missed last week's episode, it was with Anna Price Olson, the editorial director of Brides, who also acts as the brand lead for the publication. And today's guest is Shan-Lyn Ma, the CEO and co-founder of Zola, the wedding company reinventing the wedding planning experience by combining compassionate customer service with smart tools and technology. Since the company's launch in 2013, Zola has achieved explosive growth and has supported over 1 million couples on their journey from engagement to wedding and newlywed life. They are essentially a one-stop shop. The company has been named one of the Wall Street Journal's top 25 tech companies to watch and one of Fast Company's most innovative companies. Enjoy this conversation with Shan-Lyn Ma. Shan, it is so good to have you on the show. I've been really excited about having you on. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me. Fan of the podcast, so great to be here.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. So, you know, when I was researching you, I know that you have a degree in e-commerce with honors from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, and then an MBA from Stanford University. And I believe your mother was from Singapore, though you grew up in Australia. Is that right?
That is right. You've really done your research.
Well, I try. Well, Shan, what were some of your passions growing up? I mean, was there any connection at all to anything that you do today? Like, what were you really into when you were a girl?
I grew up as a very nerdy child. I was a first generation immigrant 2 times over. So first, my family moved from Singapore to Australia when I was 4 years old. And then, as you mentioned, I moved from Australia to the US to go to graduate school. But growing up in Australia, my parents didn't have a ton of money, but just enough to pay for my school books and food and roof over our heads. But anything else that I wanted to do, they instilled in me that I had to work really hard to get it. And so I spent a lot of time in the library reading, thinking about how could I create something or create a life where I could go afford my own dreams. And that ended up being, I was really enamored by business and entrepreneurship, read a lot about that through business magazines and business books. And then, as I was growing up, that was the time that the tech revolution was starting to get underway. And here I was on the other side of the world from the US and Silicon Valley, where the tech action was happening, and felt really compelled to want to be a part of this tech revolution that was just changing the way people live and opening up entire worlds of information to anyone, no matter where you lived or who you were, through the internet.
Well, and I know that after college, you held product and marketing roles at Yahoo. You were also the creator and GM of Guilt Taste in the food and wine division, and eventually you became the first product lead for new business launches, and then you were chief product officer at Chloe and Isabel. Were you thinking from the beginning, like during graduate school, that you would want to be an entrepreneur and eventually found your own company, or were you not quite sure and you just simply wanted to get into the tech environment?
I had always dreamt of being an entrepreneur, even from when I was a little girl growing up. And I think it was really because I saw in examples through these old dated business magazines of entrepreneurs who had created companies that touch millions or tens of millions of people at that time. And so, the ability to have such a wide reach with just a cool product that you might launch at that time. What I was really inspired by was Yahoo, which was really the first exciting internet company to open up the world via their portal. And I was very much an admirer of Jerry Yang, the founder of Yahoo. And so I wanted to kind of follow that path. And that's what kind of led me to even come to the US in the first place, because it seemed like this was where all the great tech companies and entrepreneurs were congregating, and I wanted to be a part of that and learn from them.
Prior to, you starting Zola, I mean, in a moment we're going to go there, but prior to that, from all the experience that you had in these different companies, including Yahoo, what would you feel that you really learned that you carry with you today? Like what were some of the main elements of all that experience that you had prior to starting your own company?
Well, you mentioned that a lot of the jobs that I had in these different companies were all in product, and product meaning websites and mobile apps as digital products. And I loved and still do love the tradecraft of product management, because what it really is spending a lot of time talking to users and understanding their needs, their pain points, their desires, their dreams, and thinking and talking to them, brainstorming with them ideas for how to make things better of all the things that they're currently using today. And then going away, creating possible digital solutions, bringing it back to them, showing them, getting their feedback, and continuing to iterate and create on behalf of the user, but also in partnership with them. And at Yahoo, the product that I was working on was an advertising product serving small businesses. And around the time that I was doing this, actually, it was quite a while ago. So most small businesses did not have their own website yet. And so one of the products I was working on was, what if we could create a really easy way for small businesses who didn't have a website to create their own listing on Yahoo, their own web page, and then what's an easy way for them to buy traffic on Yahoo to start to get people to their page to build their businesses. And so I spent a lot of time talking to small businesses from very different industries, whether it was car dealerships or artificial Christmas tree sellers, or you name it, florists. I spent a lot of time really understanding how did they think about their business and growing their business in order to build and design this product for them.
Interesting. So why the wedding industry? Like, how did your vision for Zola come about, and why weddings? How did that start?
It was really born out of personal need. 2013, which was the year that my co-founder, his name is Nobu, Nobu and I started Zola. That was the year that all my friends were getting married at the same time. I felt like I was a professional wedding guest.
Right.
And Nobu and I had worked for a long time in an e-commerce company that had grown very quickly. And so we were looking at all the things in our lives that we used that were easy, beautiful, inspiring. And then we started looking at what was available for couples to plan their wedding. And we found that our friends getting married were being underserved. And so from the beginning, we thought, what if we were able to create that all in one place for wedding planning, and create a company that put couples first to help them design their wedding in a way that is truly connected, so that they could focus on planning a wedding that felt more like them.
Wow. So how then, and I know that you co-founded the company in 2013, I want to just take a pause, and I wonder, was it very anxiety provoking to leave these situations you've had, these other jobs where you had salaries or perhaps you had bonuses and all that, but you basically had, enough financial security, I would think, generally speaking, and then now here you are, you're going to go off on your own. Did you God, Shan, did you feel any kind of nervousness about that? What was that like?
Well, there was a couple of things that I did. So one was, we spent a lot of time before we really committed to saying we are going to pursue this vision for Zola. We spent a lot of time talking to couples and also to the wedding vendors and planners. And we really wanted to deeply understand, again, what were the needs, what were people using today, how did they think it could be better, what did we think we could create that could improve the industry and the experience. And through that process, we started on nights and weekends after work, we would sketch out our ideas on my small coffee table in my apartment in downtown Manhattan.
Right.
We would show these sketches to people we had interviewed. We would then take their feedback, go away, put it into a web prototype, go back and show them. And through this process, we started to feel more and more like this was something that was absolutely going to work. And it gave us more confidence that we had something special. And I always remember the moment that I thought this is going to be big is when we were showing a bride-to-be, she was engaged, and we were showing her an early prototype for Zola, and she started crying. And I was initially worried. I was like, oh, is this so bad that we're making you cry? And she said, no, this is incredible. Am I even allowed to do this for my wedding? Is this even possible? I didn't know this was something I could actually do. And what we realized was that people wanted or felt like they needed permission to create a wedding or a registry that was truly them. And that night we went away and we started thinking, how can we build this and launch it in the market as quickly as possible? And so that process really took out some of the risk of, is this going to work? Because we had done so much user interviewing to understand that the users that we would need to adopt it were kind of begging us to launch it. The second thing I will say is I also took out a lot of credit cards.
Oh, geez, did you?
And I kind of lived off a lot of zero interest credit cards and balance transfers. And that's what got me through the first part of Zola before we had funding. And I would not recommend that to anyone, but it was not like I had a big, nest egg. I did not. I had credit cards, and that's how I survived.
Well, any entrepreneur, I'm one also. I used to work for IBM and Lexmark. And back in the days of IBM, that was such a safe kind of a position to be in. And I, like you, I did a lot of research. I started things while I was still working there in the corporate environment. But then still to take that leap is, I think any entrepreneur has a certain amount of tolerance for risk. Wouldn't you say? It sounds like that. Obviously, with you had a certain risk tolerance that you could do that with credit cards.
Yeah, and when we started working on Zola, the process of doing this was really our and my dream. And so I thought, if I don't do it now, then when am I going to do it? And I had to. There was no other option for me. And so once I decided that was the time and I had to do it, it was more a matter of, now how can I make it work and survive and continue to pay my rent?
Well, and I also saw somewhere, some interview you had done, that you had mentioned that you and your business partner, Nobu, worked 24/7 for at least 4 years. Like, it was really intense in the beginning.
We had worked together at a previous company for 4 years. And so I think through that experience, we really, first and foremost, got to understand that we were able to create special products together because we had done that before. We were able to know we love working together and we're very complementary in our skill sets. And then we also got exposure to a lot of different people across different disciplines on, from merchandising to operations to finance, that we could then identify, because we'd worked really hard alongside them, we could identify who would we want to work with again. And, we're lucky that many of the people we identified as people we would love to work with again have joined us at Zola.
Well, and also with Nobu, how do you divide up your responsibilities? What essentially are you responsible? I know your title is CEO, but did you have a clear difference of responsibilities with Nobu, or how did you work that out?
So Nobu is a design genius, and he is able to come up with and take ideas and needs that he hears from either our couples or vendors, and then create elegant solutions that maybe they might have mentioned, or maybe no one might have imagined, but then once you see it, you can't imagine doing anything any other way. And so Nobu is very focused on our product and our portfolio of products. And so in the beginning, it was just one product. It was the wedding registry that we started with. But now we have many other things in the wedding planning journey. And so he's focused on product and designing that with his team of incredible product designers, as well as partnering very closely with the product management team and engineering team to bring these to life. Back then, when we were a very small team, I was kind of focused on everything else. So, as a scrappy startup, I was taking customer support calls. I was going to buy laptops for new employees, but I was also working on merchandising, finance, marketing, you name it. I was probably working on it. Now we have grown and are much bigger in a very fortunate position where we also have a president and COO, and her name is Rachel, and she is essentially a key partner to me in running the business day to day. She is just the most incredible business leader I had ever met, and we were lucky to also work together in the past. And so she now really helps run the various business units, which make up our kind of different products across Zola, and thinks about, what is the right strategic direction, expansion plan, team strategy, and so we very much work together in how can we grow Zola to have the biggest impact on both our couples and our vendors and the business.
Yeah. I want to be sure you know the wonderful news of our latest show, Stop and Smell the Roses, with acclaimed lifestyle and event design expert Preston Bailey. Not only will he share the secrets, tools, and technologies behind his extraordinary ability to create a theatrical environment out of any space, you will also discover more about the man behind the magic. Preston will reveal how his focus on personal growth has been the root of his professional success, and you'll have the opportunity for him to answer your questions along the way. Plus, Preston will be inviting onto the show many of the star celebrities he has worked with in the past, so you don't want to miss a single episode. We also have another great show on the Wedding Biz Network, The Business of Being Creative, with host Shan-Lyn Ma. Since debuting, his show has really taken off, and he's continuing to bring you the creative business advice he's shared with accomplished industry notables. Be sure to take advantage of Sean's talkback opportunity by recording questions and comments from right there in each episode's show notes. So, if you are a creative who is turning your craft into a business or want to take it to another level, head to theweddingbiznetwork.com and take a listen to Stop and Smell the Roses with Preston Bailey and The Business of Being Creative with Shan-Lyn Ma. That's theweddingbiznetwork.com. You've got an integrated, seamless ecosystem of tools that support couples along their entire wedding journey. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I think the vision is, what if couples did not have to use 20 different apps or products or tools to plan one day? What if they could spend all their days leading up to that wedding day on Zola, finding the things that are right for their particular wedding? And so what I mean by this is, when couples get married, they typically start to think about their wedding venue, of course, and where they're going to get married. And so we recently launched our vendor marketplace, where we have many different categories of vendors, including venues. And so we do see a huge number of couples that will start here with us, look at and search on where they're thinking of getting married, what are they thinking their budget is, what is their kind of style profile, and narrow down their preferred venues and then reach out to them through the Zola platform. But then they can also find photographers, caterers, florists. And then once they start to have more and more of their vendors, that's when they can start thinking about their wedding website, which we have for free on Zola. We have a guest list manager that integrates into your wedding website because, of course, you want to be able to collect all your RSVPs through the wedding website, but you also then want your save the dates and invitations to look like your wedding website. So we help print those as well. And the registry is the thing that everyone wants to put on their wedding website. So we support the wedding registry. And that, of course, is also linked to the guest list. So we help track who gave you what. And then we help you send out thank you notes because we know who gave you which product and what their address is. And so you can seamlessly, write your thank you note either with or without our help, have that sent out. And then if you want to also add a photo that was taken by that photographer you found on Zola, add that photo to your thank you note and print it with us when you send it out. And then it's really the entire journey that we are trying to make as seamless and joyful as possible.
Yeah. Well, and in terms of the wedding vendor platform, is there some kind of a screening process for the wedding professionals, who want to take part in the listing? How does that go?
Yeah. So it is free to list. We do have a team that is vetting potential vendors just to make sure that they are indeed wedding vendors and they have worked in weddings before. And so, obviously wanting to make sure that it is up to the standard that Zola couples expect. Of course, the vast majority of wedding vendors meet that criteria, but we do have that vetting process so that we're not recommending or matching couples with any vendors that we can't stand behind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's incredible what you've got. I mean, like you say, you're helping the couples from the very beginning of the process throughout the very end. I mean, it's an incredible system. How would you say Zola is differentiated from other wedding companies that have some level of support for couples and provide planner and vendor recommendations?
We really believe that the offering that works in this industry is not to sell to vendors, but to support vendors and support couples together. And so our success at Zola is all based on, can we connect the right couples to the right vendors? And can we do that by delivering our product experience that we have built for vendors and built in hand with the vendors? And so a lot of it is removing a lot of the noise around, say, an advertising-based business model and only providing vendors with the leads or the couples or the inquiries that they say they are most interested in receiving, and not just doing that, but also providing support to our vendor community through anything else that they might be looking for support with or for support on. And so in serving the vendors in that way, we think that's also doing the right thing on behalf of the couples, and product is the place in which we win on both fronts.
Also, I mean, look, you founded the company, co-founded it just 8 to 9 years ago, and you've raised an enormous amount of seed money funding, and the growth has been explosive. It's only been 8 to 9 years, and it's such a saturated market. How do you feel that you've done that?
It's really been by creating our business roadmap and our product roadmap that is user-led. So for the first 4 years of the life of the company, we had one product, which was our wedding registry product. And we were really focused on how can we make it the best possible product based on all the feedback that we're hearing from couples on what they would want to see from us. But at the same time, these couples were also asking us, can you also help me with my wedding website, with my honeymoon, with finding my venues and my vendors? And we purposely, while that was the vision from day one, we purposely wanted to do it in the right order. And so we moved from the wedding registry into the wedding website because those two things are very closely connected. And from there, started to progress to here, what is the next top thing that we're hearing, which was invitations, save the dates, and so on and so forth. And so that user-led approach is what led us to then finally have enough resources and energy to really focus on the biggest product that we knew would take a huge amount of the team's time, which has been that vendor marketplace, and really focus on it in the right way. And for the last few years, we've been very focused here, and hopefully that is reflected in the product that couples can see.
Oh, yeah. Well, and let's talk about the recent past. So I'm thinking that, here you are developing this company, growing and growing. It's really moving quickly for you. And then March of 2020, COVID hits. Gosh, I want to ask you so much about this, Shan. I mean, first of all, just personally, as an entrepreneur where you're building this large company, you've got these goals. How did it affect you? What was your initial response, and how did you deal with it?
Well, I think one of the things that is a huge benefit of working in the weddings industry is that we can all see the wedding dates that are coming up on our books for the coming year, right? Because we all know, couples are booking their wedding dates, and so we can see how our year is going to go. And at the beginning of 2020, we could see it looked like we were going to have an incredible year. We had a huge number of weddings on the Zola platform, and we thought this is going to be just the best year ever. Of course, COVID had other plans. And so that first week of the lockdown, we could see a huge number of couples moving their wedding dates to either be later in 2020 or into 2021. And it was just devastating because within a matter of days, it was very clear to us that the year was going to be significantly different than what we had planned at the beginning of the year. And we needed to shift as quickly as possible to secure the future of our company. And so what we did was a couple of things. We ended up, again, listening to what are our couples telling us. And they were really reaching out to us in droves. And they were, of course, also extremely upset on how are they going to reschedule their wedding? How are they going to communicate this to their guests? And we spent a lot of time reprioritizing our roadmap to work on the products that couples were asking us to help with that weren't even on our radar before, whether it was change the dates product or a way for couples to put messages on their wedding websites on how they're thinking about their weddings in a new COVID world. So personally, you asked personally, how did I feel? I think the first few days, it was devastating. Then the second day, it was like action stations of, right, what do we need to do? What can we do? How should we think about prioritizing things? And I am just, every day from then on, am and was so proud of how quickly the Zola team responded to really doing everything we could to support our couples and our vendors. And the silver lining of that refocus of the year was that we were able to see, it's not just the couples that are hurting, but there's also a lot of vendors who are reaching out to us wanting to learn how can they reach more couples because, of course, their business was really impacted. And we were able to actually reprioritize our focus on the vendor marketplace that year in a bigger way than we weren't originally planning. So while I would not want to relive 2020, it ended up being like a really pivotal year for us in refocusing us on what's important for the long term and doing everything we could to make sure we were there during hard times.
I really feel just all the challenges that I've been through in my life and in my business that, I've come to the point where the only way I could look at these challenges and these obstacles is what can I do to turn it around for myself, right? And bring what I'm doing to another level and be able to look back and say, okay, it was awful, it was painful, and maybe it cost me a ton of money, but what is the benefit of it, right? What was the blessing in disguise that came from it, and how can I turn it into a blessing in disguise, right? It seems that as an entrepreneur, that's the biggest challenge we have with these obstacles that come along. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you also, I mean, in 2020, you introduced a home store, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, talk about a pivot, right? Creating a platform to host what ended up being thousands of virtual weddings.
Yeah, it's certainly not on the plan at the beginning of the year. And it was really something that was almost pulled out of us by the user behavior that we were seeing in the middle of the pandemic. Because I think when we first launched our wedding registry product, we thought, what's interesting as a future opportunity in the long term is the reason why every department store has a registry is because they then hope to build a relationship to continue to serve these couples as they move into their newlywed home and want to fill out their home. And of course, you have a lot of home products in your registry. So we thought at some point it will be a great opportunity for us, but we weren't ready to prioritize that yet because we still had so much we wanted to invest in on the weddings front. 2020 comes and we see all of a sudden all these people buying from Zola for their homes who are not planning a wedding. We have no idea how they even decided to come and shop from our store. But it was at that point really hard to buy from Zola for your home if you weren't getting married. We kind of asked you, hey, you want these bed sheets? When are you getting married? And as someone who's not getting married, it was a bit odd. So we thought, what if we created a home store on Zola and just make it easy for people who are already wanting to buy from us? So we saw people who had both used us in the past for their wedding and then were a few years post-wedding, as well as maybe wedding guests or people that had just heard of Zola. We launched the home store. It really had a huge positive impact on the company. And so it remains there. We still have people shopping for their homes on Zola, but I think the big refocus as we're coming out of the pandemic now is let's turn our attention back to what are all the things that we wanted to prioritize to really fulfill the vision of we want every couple to start their wedding planning journey on Zola and help them throughout that entire life stage.
And you mentioned, coming out of the pandemic. So I imagine you've got a lot of statistics as to what is going on. Obviously, are you seeing a huge uptick in people deciding to get married and to plan a wedding? I mean, what are you seeing lately?
Oh, we are seeing just a huge amount of pent-up romantic demand that has been unleashed in 2022. I think 2022 is turning out to be a real wedding boom year. And it makes sense. A lot of people who wanted to get engaged in 2020 or maybe even 2021 might not have felt like it was the right time to get engaged. And certainly we all know a lot of weddings got rescheduled. And that is all now coming to be. I think we already know that for us, 2021 was our biggest year ever, and 2022 we can already see is looking to be even bigger than that.
Wow, incredible! Even with still the back and forth with the different strains and the variants, that was still your best year, 2021.
That's right, and I really credit that to I think being there to support couples and vendors in 2020, where we really tried to go above and beyond on the customer support front and build a community. And that, I think, is now coming back. Couples and vendors are rewarding us with just word of mouth that spread over that year.
Mm-hmm. So what do you see, as we start to wrap up here, what do you see for Zola, for the company, for the rest of this year and let's say the next 3 to 5 years?
We're just really focused on doing what we do best, which is we're listening, we're learning, we're iterating, and trying to create the best possible experience for our community. One thing we launched just a few weeks ago is a product that we call Real Weddings, which is a completely new way for couples to take action on wedding inspiration that they see, which is real wedding photos, where you can see and you can filter not just on the style of a photo, but also on the location. So if you say, oh, I just got engaged, I'm thinking about getting married in New York, I can filter by New York weddings and see beautiful wedding photos, and then click on those photos, see all the vendors that were associated with that wedding that put on what you see there in the photo, and then click and inquire with those vendors. And so it's really, I think, the first time that you can get inspiration, but also take and filter and take action and plan your wedding from there. And so we'll be spending even more time growing that Real Weddings product for our couples and vendors, and doing more things like that reimagine how couples might want to connect with vendors.
So is there anything else, that maybe I didn't cover that you would like to mention, bring up about Zola, or about how you feel about the industry? Anything before we go?
I think having worked on Zola, since 2013, the thing that is so special about being a part of this industry is how we get to be a part of the couple's lives, not just on the most special, memorable, magical day of their lives, but also in all the days that lead up to that, where there's just so many special moments that we are able to witness or play a big part in creating and delivering to the couple. And so it is I just feel so much gratitude and honor in having couples and vendors embrace us in this journey that is unlike any other in their life.
It sure is. Well, this has been a real pleasure, Shan. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really been a blast.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's so great to get to talk to you.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Shan-Lyn Ma. Be sure to check out the website of Zola.com. You can find Zola on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Zola. And you can get all of this in the show notes at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you can think of 3 good friends who you think would really enjoy this interview, please forward it to them. Let them be aware of it. And giving a review wherever you get your podcast from helps new people find the show. And so you can also follow The Wedding Biz on Instagram, in particular at The Wedding Biz, and we'll catch you next week.